Life with mental illness can often feel like you're on this never ending cycle of failure. Every time you turn around, you feel like you've failed at something else. And it doesn't have to be a particular event, it can just be the fact that you aren't healthy, normal, for want of a better word. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about that today because what needs to be said in this context is that even though you can feel like you're on this constant treadmill of failure and you don't want to do things, you really don't. Sometimes showing up, just being there, is a win. And you need to acknowledge that. And we need to start recognizing the wins for what they are so that you can get off this never-ending feeling that you're constantly failing. Let's talk about that today on Mark My Words. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. God, I hate saying that. Let's dive right in and see what happens. Welcome to Mark My Words. Mark My Words is the story of my journey from a place where I was shattered to where I could live again. When you live with mental illness, you feel like you're on this never-ending treadmill of failure. Every step you're going to take, you're going to fail. That meeting that you couldn't make it to, that family event that you weren't up to going to, that conversation where you didn't speak up for yourself, that time where you couldn't enjoy something to the full because you were so caught up in your own pain, that it can feel like failure after failure after failure. And it's demoralizing. It makes it so that you just don't want to do anything. I know that's happened in my life. And recently, when a couple of things that have been negative have happened, things that are not my fault, but things that have affected my life, my course, my journey in negative ways, that I've wanted to give up, that I've wanted to just say, you know what? Hang it. Why would I continue doing the things that I need to do if my life is never, ever going to get any better? What is the point? And that's where hope comes into it. If you keep failing over and over and over and over, and unfortunately, mental illness feels like a very solitary journey. If the only narrative in your head is that you have failed over and over and over again, then you are going to fail completely. You are going to pack it in. But what I want to do today is I want to challenge that perspective. I want to challenge that thought process that says that if I don't perform at my absolute best, then somehow I've failed. And I want to set the bar pretty low. I'm going to set the bar at just showing up. Sometimes just being there is enough. In my circumstance, I need to go to schools and I do talks and I do it in workplaces and the AFP and all this sort of stuff. But sometimes I wake up in the morning and I am struggling and I don't want to do it. Even though it's something that's really good for my mental health, because getting dressed, having a shower, getting out of the house, going somewhere, arriving where I'm supposed to, and then attempting to do what I need to do is a massive win, and it's good for my mental health. So take, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, I had to go in and do this talk, and I did not want to do it. I felt that I was unqualified. I felt that I was struggling so much that how dare I stand in front of people and tell them that life would get better, even though you have mental illness, even though I didn't believe it. Well, I showed up at the event and the person that I was there to do the talk with was really struggling, even worse than I was. Well, let's not be comparative. We were both struggling, but when I saw their struggle, it allowed me to bring myself out of myself. I stopped thinking about myself. I started putting them forward. And it's something that I wouldn't have done if I had have not shown up. It would have been a fail. My fail would have led to the failure of somebody else. And, it's just failure compounding failure. But the fact that I showed up and I didn't give the best talk that day. I wasn't at my best. It was still effective and people still heard the story. But when I walked out of that room, I certainly wasn't going, you know what, that was one of my best talks ever. It was very true that it was, to my standards, a mediocre talk. But the fact that I was there to support this other person to do their talk, and just the fact that they spoke at all was commendable, because they did not want to be there. They didn't know that they were going to be able to do it. And then there was this confusion at the beginning, and it threw them into this little bit of a mental health crisis. So I was drawn out of myself, my natural inkling, my natural instinct to care for someone just came out, and I was looking after them and I wasn't thinking about myself. And then I did my talk. And like I said, it wasn't great, but it was done. I got the message across. The kids were really appreciative. But if I hadn't shown up, I hate to think what would have happened. I hope that my colleague would have been able to just go through and do their talk, but it's quite possible that they wouldn't have been able to. Now, this day, I got through to the end of it and I did my talk. I went home. I had to switch off. I was emotionally exhausted, and I played my video game for the rest of the day. And I was thinking about it, and this is the way my mind was telling me to think about it. My mind was saying, Mark, you didn't do your best today. You barely showed up. You did a terrible talk by your standards. And then you were so emotionally exhausted, so pathetic, that you had to spend the rest of the day playing a video game. Instead, what I've been trying to tell myself, and it's not easy, is Mark, you did it. You showed up. You helped this other person get through their own mental health crisis. And yes, it was exhausting, but it was a positive day. You won. You ticked so many great boxes. And at the same time, I've got my mind saying, you failed today. Everything that you did was terrible. And it wasn't. See, even while I'm telling you this, there's a voice in my mind that's going, Mark, this is a load of crap. This is not true. This is not the truth. The way I told you to perceive it is the way that you should perceive it. Sometimes showing up is enough. The fact that mental illness didn't win completely that day. Sure, it may have knocked the wind out of your sails. Sure, it might have slowed you down. Sure, it may have made your day a little bit more difficult, but you did it. You achieved something. You showed up. And that in itself is special sometimes. And you're listening to this now going, I can never do that. Well, I'm listening to myself and I'm saying I could never do that. That's the thing about mental illness, is it keeps telling us that we've lost. Even when we've won, we've lost, because we didn't win by enough of a spread. We didn't win as comprehensively as what we feel that we could have. Looking at these things as successes, looking at these things not as failures, not listening to your own mind, challenging those thoughts and saying, you know what? I succeeded because I was there. Now, on this day where all this happened, it was a bunch of nothing. It was just a bunch of random people doing a random thing. It was just like any other day. Shown up to hundreds of these talks and done them all without any issue. But on this day, what I did, compared to what my mental illness is telling me, what I did was extraordinary. And I hope that I will have the grace to keep admitting that to myself and saying, you know what, Mark? Mental illness did not win that day. In fact, you were able to kick it in the nuts, which is what I try and do this podcast for. It's what I try and tell my story for, because mental illness stole so much from me. It stole my now. There is no now. I'm just caught up with pain. It stole my past. Everything that I did was bad. And it stole my future because I could never have a future. And that's all a lie that my mind tries to tell me every single day. And the fact of the matter is that tomorrow, I hope I'm going to show up. And that is hope in itself. Tomorrow, I hope I'm going to be well enough to do something. Now, the day after tomorrow, I've been invited to do this thing that's quite extraordinary. And I'm really, really pleased that just I didn't give in to my mental illness when it told me that this would be another thing that you will fail at. So why even bother? I'm actually excited about this thing. I'm sorry, I can't go into what it is, but I'm going to get to speak to a bunch of people that I would not have had the opportunity to speak to if I had have just given up. I want to encourage you. You are feeling like this, same as I do. Allow yourself to self-congratulate yourself. Don't flagellate, congratulate. Flagellate, of course, means to harm yourself, to beat yourself. The old priests in the Middle Ages used to hit themselves with whips, self-flagellation. You know, I have to inflict pain on myself. And that's what our mental illness does. It tries to inflict pain on us, tries to steal stuff from us. Rather than do that, rather than allowing your mind to pull you down and make you feel like you're a failure, challenge that thought with, you know what? I showed up today and good things happened. And the dominoes fell in such a way that one good thing led to another good thing, which led to another good thing. Still, at the end of the day, my mind will say, no matter what you did today, you're still broken. If you weren't broken, what you could have done today would have been a million times better. And you wouldn't be self-doubting yourself. And maybe. But it's not the narrative that I'm going to keep filling myself with. I'm going to start enjoying my successes. I'm going to start saying, you know what? I did succeed today. We often think that to fall down is failure. It's the not getting back up that is the failure. If you fall and you get back up, you haven't failed, you've stumbled, you've tripped. And then what have you done? You've shown resilience. You jumped right back up and said, you know what, I'm going to keep going. My wife is hilarious. She has these kind of pratfalls that she should be embarrassed about. She'll fall down on the way to work. She'll slip in a puddle or something like that. What my wife does is she doesn't let that define her day. In fact, she sees it as a funny story and she tells everybody, guess what? I fell down today and I really hurt my backside. She doesn't shy away from it. She doesn't embrace the embarrassment. She doesn't go, oh, you know, this happened, so I'm going to go home today, have a sick day. And I've always admired that about her, that these little pratfalls that she takes from time to time are a source of amusement for her. I'm never going to get to the point where I have emotional pratfall and go, hey, my mental illness did this today. But I'm inspired by her example of saying, you know what? Something negative happened to me today, but it doesn't define who I am. I got back up and I just kept doing the things that I needed to do. Now, of course, I don't want anybody out there thinking that I'm trying to give you an Instagram fix to what can be a life shattering development when you have a mental health crisis. I'm not trying to tell you that, it's all sunshine and rainbows. I'm not. I'm telling you that sometimes just showing up is a win. And as long as you keep showing up, you'll continue to win. Hey, I do hope you have a great week. Like, share, and subscribe if you would. We've picked up some more subscribers in the last couple of weeks. I want to thank you all for joining the conversation. If you ever have something that you want to talk about, if you ever want to be interviewed, just drop me a line, DM me, or make a comment on one of the posts. If you've got a story that you'd like to tell, if it relates to living with mental illness, would love to help you tell that story. Reach out. But otherwise, have a great week. I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.